All right. You know what time it is. It's Thursday night. Time for TCR Live. And as always, I am joined by two of my favorite people. I love you guys. Aarron Van Buren, Kyler Burd. Gentlemen, here's to you. Kyler, since Aaron's in the middle of a swig, how are you, sir?
I am doing great. Glad to be back again. We had a big marathon run last week. I think we went 4 hours almost, but we've rested up over the past week. We're ready to bring you some of that peak off-season Arizona Cardinals content.
So much going on right now.
So much. The NBA free agency. Yeah.
Yes, that's where it's at right this moment. Yeah. So we'll see what's going on with Kevin Durant, and Ayton and so on and so forth. But Mr. Van Buren.
You mean these guys, right? What?
Who?
Oh my gosh.
Oh geez. You know what I would do about that? That's how I handle that. That's how we handle that around these parts, Mr. Van Buren. How are you, sir?
I am great. Just happy to be back. It feels like it's been quite a long time since the last one. I feel like not last week, but the following one, like that previous week up to the 2 hour one went so fast, and this one's just been dragging.
Yeah.
But Thursday night, best time in Cardinals land right here.
It is for sure. We got some great folks in the chat as well. We got Class Nasty, always early, always with the side eyes. Thank you so much. We've got Eno Brian, who's here, great support of the channel. We really appreciate you. Let's go, best show, and you the man, Joe. I appreciate that so much. We got Tony, another wonderful supporter, great dude, who I love following on Twitter. Ready to go, guys. Love the XLII jersey. That's right at you, Mr. Van Buren. We got Agent 47. What's up? L1's happy to see the crew as well. And we got Paul G, best show in town. Only show, but who knows? Yes, we're the best show, Arizona Cardinals show going right now, the only one. But yeah, appreciate you all being here. And this is obviously what makes it for us is having you all here hanging out with us and your questions and comments. We've just got a couple topics based on a couple tweets that are out there. But I think today's stream in particular will probably be a lot based on your Q&A and what you all in the chat want to talk about. We got a couple things, but we're not heavy on the prepared full breakdown or whatever. We just got a couple things. So if you got questions, get them in there. We'll talk through them. But as a starting point to get us something to talk about, there's a couple tweets that were related to the Cardinals that are kind of interesting, inside linebacker related. So let's take a look at these. Kyle Odegaard, great, content creator, used to work for the Arizona Cardinals, still has, does a lot of stuff related to them as well. The Cardinals have the third worst inside linebacker unit in the NFL, according to Pro Football Focus, in terms of their rankings. That's kind of a tough take, but PFF, doesn't really seem to, doesn't usually view Cardinals players very positively, it seems. But their grades weren't great, right? We've got to, and so that's there's a legitimate question there. But then this blog site, heavy.com, a writer for them, wrote an article proposing a trade. He's got this tweet, Paul Andrew Esden Jr. The Jets have flirted with big trades throughout the offseason, but this one with the Cardinals could deliver a potential start in New York. Hashtag Burd City Football, hashtag take flight. And the proposed trade was the Cardinals trading Isaiah Simmons for a conditional third-round pick. And I read part of the article. His rationale is that Simmons has underperformed and that the price should not be too steep for him, and that he could be had for a third-round pick. Certainly the Cardinals are wanting to unload this guy who has not performed well, right? And so we have our opinions on the article. In fact, I will ask Aarron Van Buren, why don't you get us started with your thoughts on this article and Kyle Odegaard's kind of assessment. Well, it's not even his assessment, PFF's assessment of the middle linebackers.
Well, I mean, personally, I've never been to New York, but this tweet and article sounds just as successful as you trying to go down the street in New York and not hear a curse word. So, I mean, and to think that the Cardinals would just kind of like up and give Simmons, yeah, exactly, for a conditional third round that may become a second rounder. No way. I mean, if there's anybody who would have been more of a trade target at the linebacker position, probably may have been Zaven Collins, but still, they're still both first round picks. You're not just going to drop somebody off from off like that unless the dude's Josh Rosen. So,
which ended up looking like we actually got quite good value for. I mean, we used a first round pick to draft him, but like to get a second round pick for what he's ended up becoming.
Yeah,
thanks
Dolphins.
Yeah, thanks Dolphins. Yeah,
but yeah, no, it's there's an unfathomable trade and really can just be dismissed by us. But Kyler, what do you think?
I think it's a clear-cut case of someone who knows how to look stuff up on PFF, but has no inkling of what the reality is on the ground any other place but in New York. Not even talking about the first round value that we use a first round pick on Isaiah Simmons, but I think there's still a lot of hope in the building and a lot of hope in the fan base that Isaiah Simmons is still going to be that really, really long-term franchise guy at that position. And this guy seems to have no sense of that intrinsic value that he brings to the franchise. And he's playing a mathematics game of this guy looks bad because of this bad number, so he's worth a third round pick. But that's not really how the world of trades works. It's not really just a cut and dry, like algorithmic calculation. You take into consideration a lot of other things. And talking about the NBA free agency, like any talk about Devin Booker being traded, there's no way that that's ever going to happen because he is the identity of the Phoenix Suns. Now, Isaiah Simmons is not at the same level of that, but we've talked on this stream before about kind of the role, this leadership role that we envision for Isaiah Simmons into the future. And I think that the organization has that too. So to even suggest a third rounder for Isaiah Simmons is wild and out of touch with reality.
Yeah, I think you are both absolutely right on this. And folks in the chat agree. Simmons ain't going nowhere. It's not like he's a bust. He's had his highlights and has improved. And when are they going to give us CJ Mosley? And even then, yeah. So I think what you're saying, Kyler, is a great point in terms of they're looking at PFF grades. They're looking for players that seem like, that maybe you could take a flyer on, but it's the ultimate in a person who doesn't know anything about what's going on with an organization speculating. I'm sure that this author knows plenty about the Jets, and I don't follow the Jets closely enough, so they probably have a much better idea what's going on with their organization. And I think what their insight, they probably have good insights into what the Jets are thinking, but they have no flipping idea what the Cardinals are thinking, because the Cardinals believe in Simmons. Yes, his PFF grades haven't been great thus far, but did you all saw that press conference with Isaiah Simmons, right? The maturity, the leadership, the accountability, I'm sure they see that every day in the locker room and on the practice field, and they believe in him. And the physical tools are undeniable. As not success here. The linebackers have struggled, and we've talked about this before, that the D line, is part of the reason for that. But like the Cardinals this is a guy you draft in the top 10. You have him on a rookie deal. He has the sky high potential, and you're not giving up on him trading him for a third round. You're not bailing on him in his rookie deal. What the Cardinals are going to do is they're going to stick with him, and they're going to give him every chance to become that star that they hope he does. And if by the end of his rookie deal he does not become that star, they will either offer him a budget contract or he will go somewhere else as a free agent. But they're not going to trade him before that's over, right? That's just not going to happen. It doesn't make sense for the Cardinals to trade him for a third round pick because they still believe in him and he has a good likelihood of becoming better than what they would get with that, right? So,
yeah.
But I think the bigger thing is what this is a case of it is the end of June, the deadest time for NFL news, and dude needed to publish something.
Yeah, we're all going crazy. Aarron and I have to write stuff all the time. Stuff's going through your mind, and if you think, hey, I could maybe write something about that. I think that's what happened with Paul here. You know what it also reminds me of? A couple of years ago, it was painfully obvious in the national media and just most sports media in general that people outside Arizona and outside this small fandom did not watch Arizona Cardinals games because the same little lines about the Cardinals would just be repeated year after year after year. So the 2018, man, this is one of the worst offensive lines we've ever seen in football, has gotten repeated since 2018. And no one has actually looked at the performance of the offensive line since then.
It's gotten better.
It has definitely gotten better from 2018 because it's hard to get much worse. But they took this line from 2018. They don't actually watch Cardinals games because it's not a big market team. And they just run with these lines of whatever it is. Offensive line one is just an example. But that happens to Arizona all the time because you get this one little good sound bite of, oh, man, this offensive line struggles and blah, blah, blah. And they just run with it for 4 years now. So it's the same sort of attitude of who actually knows what goes on in this little Arizona team. But Isaiah Simmons, let's see, he got a 51 defensive grade on PFF last year. So third rounder sounds good.
Yeah, it's just it's not understanding how teams value their players, right? Teams do not value just simply look at PFF and give a value to their players. There's much more to it than that. There's a lot more qualitative things than just, that quantitative PFF grade. PFF grades are useful. NFL teams use their data for certain things. Every NFL team actually contracts with them, but they don't just look at those grades and make roster decisions based on. They actually look at some of the deeper metrics for other reasons. But yeah, 100%. So it's kind of ridiculous. I think everyone agrees. They don't know what they're talking about. And I don't want to drag this guy through the mud. Like I said, I'm sure he knows plenty about the Jets.
I would defer to him on the New York Jets any day of the week because I know nothing about them.
Yeah. But in this time of the year, there are so many articles like this out and tweets out there, like proposed trades. And I don't take any of them serious, unless they're attached to a source, like someone who regularly breaks news, like, Ian Rappaport or someone like that, or someone who is an insider and they are sharing something that's come from an organization or an agent. Even then it could be smoke screens, but at least that makes sense. But what happens, unfortunately, in kind of the media landscape and social media is a guy this guy writes for the blog and does some other things. And, and just like you all write for Raising Zona. So some dude writes a thing, puts a proposed trade out there, and then all of a sudden it gets spread around and people are talking about it like it's an actual trade proposal that the teams have discussed. When really it's a dude who looked at PFF and said, hey, wouldn't this be interesting, and propose a trade. Yeah, I'm always kind of leery about that stuff. Robert, great point. Media has their own narratives, to your point, Kyler, and the Cardinals are not part of it, right?
Yeah.
So Peo had a great question that's a little bit different direction, but I think it's an interesting question. Pay always has great questions that kind of break things up a little bit. What was your favorite Cardinals play from last season? What do you guys think? Either one of you want to go first? I have mine, but I'd like to let you go.
I have to think. So why don't you go first for a change?
I don't mind. I just always like to be a good host and let you guys
go
first.
Yeah, you go first because I gotta think.
Okay. My number one play is the Rondale Moore sideline catch.
That's a good one. Yeah. Wow.
That was crazy good.
That was a good one.
I mean, it didn't look like a catch at first. And then you look at the replay, his body's out of bounds. His toes are the only thing in bounds. He's catching the ball out of bounds. It is a thing of beauty. One of my favorite Cardinals plays of all time, in fact. Not the favorite necessarily, but one of them. Just such a great play.
Okay.
See, I like to let you go first because then I steal your thunder instead of the other, or not I steal your thunder, but like I let you have the good ones first, right? And I just take what's left over, or I'm like, hey, that's a great one you came up with. I agree.
Okay, I'll go, Aarron, if you're still thinking.
I'm just trying to make sure I can pronounce it the right way. So
okay,
I'm almost there.
Okay. Well, I will just say, I think it was in the San Francisco game, and it wasn't even a pass from Kyler Murray, which is pretty sacrilegious. But that 47-yard touchdown to James Conner in the San Francisco game, just the complete roundness of James Conner's game, and just to see him get another touchdown in a season that we did not expect that type of production, and to just see him go off, and we got the win with a backup quarterback. So the whole thing was exciting, but that was a really, really good pass. I think it was a one-handed catch too, so that makes it exciting as well, just like a lot of his were last year. That one was really, really exciting for me to see.
And I'm going to go for one of the plays I actually got to see live. It was Zach Allen picking off Andy Dalton for the fourth pick of the game, and the game was already out of reach. And there were some very chirpy Bears fans behind me that I just got to rub it in their faces, and that was the last part of Cardinals enjoyment for the year, and so that's what I remember.
The 3rd and 10 Kyler scramble against the Titans. He buries Sanders' way forever and connects with Rondale Moore. That was a nice one too. That was a great one, right? Yeah. So Tony agrees with Elawan there. Murphy pick 6 versus Trevor Lawrence. That was a nice one.
That really saved that game.
Yeah. That was a really good one.
And Zach Allen INT touchdown. So he
the fumble return touchdown. When did he have a pick?
I thought he had a fumble recovery for a touchdown.
That would have been Seattle in the final regular game of the year.
And then Paul, the one he picked is I met Paul down in Jacksonville. We were all at that game. So that pick 6 saw it firsthand there, right? I don't think I was actually, I was watching when it happened, but Paul was out there. But yeah, so that was a good one. This is another good one. Right?
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
That was too easy for me. I wanted to go harder.
Yeah. So those are all good ones. Great question. Okay. So yeah, I don't want to be a troll, so I won't say my favorite. We know what it was. It was a throw by Kyler Murray. I know that, right? Am I right? Am I right, Pale? A throw by Kyler Murray that was a touchdown throw, right? Wasn't it? Just a touchdown throw by Kyler Murray.
Sadness.
Yeah. Oh man. You mock my pain. Just kidding. Great question, Pale. And so we're gonna. Hey, listen. We like I said. 6-inch pick 6. Yeah, that's right. So hey, if you all have questions, now you're trolling. Now you're trolling. There are so many to choose from.
Well, Stafford also threw about 8 interceptions in 4 games, and he almost lost you the Vikings game. So let's tone it down here.
Yeah. You know what's great though? Listen, Peo's such a good dude that if he comes in here and has a little good natured trash talk, I enjoy it because he's a good dude. He comes in here, he supports us. He's not some rando coming in here, talking trash. But so hey, if you guys listen, we're mostly, like I said, we're gonna do some Q&A tonight. So if you got questions, that was a great question. If you got questions you'd like us to talk about, get them up there in the chat. That's what we're going to probably do for most of our time tonight. So get those questions in the chat, comments in the chat. Absolutely, Peo, you're a good dude, even if you are a Rams fan. And if you aren't subscribed to Peo, go check out his channel. And I know he's got something coming up in the future that's going to be for a good cause. I'll let him kind of share the details of that. But, you do have a fun question. So you have another one. Okay. How about you guys say early predictions about NFC West? Okay, so why don't we start? That's a good start. Let's in terms of like the predictions in terms of how it's going to finish. Would either of you like to go first, or I'm willing to go first if you want me to, gentlemen.
I can get it.
Okay.
Everyone's going to know Seattle is going to be abysmal this year, and it's overdue, but they made the bed that they laid in, or whatever. They'll lay the bed that they, whatever.
They made the bed they're going to sleep in it. Yeah.
Yes, that's what it is. I don't see them being better than. I guess their ceiling would be 6 wins, maybe, but that would take a miracle between Geno Smith and or Drew Lock, or possibly Baker Mayfield if he's there. Third place. It's going to be a big gap. It's kind of going to be, what was the division? It's going to be that classic case of a division where 3 teams are in the playoffs and that 1 4th place team is so far out of the way. But I think the Niners are going to be in 3rd place, probably right around 9 wins again, 10 maybe. Just because the uncertainty at quarterback, who's going to get the reps, is Trey Lance going to develop? How is Deebo Samuel going to transition into the offense instead of just being like a Swiss Army knife like he's been used? Will he actually be able to adapt as a full wide receiver in the NFL? He did it in college, but the NFL is a whole nother game. He did have 1,400 receiving yards last year, so there's that. But spitballing here. 2nd place, Cardinals. That's probably where we're going to wind up. I see us hitting the exact same record next year, 11-6, right? 11-7, whatever it is.
11-6.
11-6, plus or minus a win or two. And it's that way because I am still really concerned about the cornerback depth. I one injury and we are in some deep trouble. And so hopefully there's some veteran free agent that we can get in, or maybe, Marco Wilson takes the next step. But that's a lot of pressure put on Budda Baker and Jalen Thompson. So, and then of course, the Rams, credit to them. They found a way to get Allen Robinson and Bobby Wagner on affordable deals and cut down on their cap space, or, their impact on it. So, to see the Rams go 13-4 or even 14-3 is not unrealistic. And, they're still going to be the team to beat until they get knocked out of the playoffs. So that's my order.
Okay. Connor.
It's going to be pretty similar because I think 1st and last place are pretty clear. It's hard to pick against the defending Super Bowl champions for 1st place. It just feels wrong to do that. They kept a lot of their good pieces. They somehow found a way to sign everyone on God's green earth to that team. And then they added Allen Robinson. And I don't see a way to avoid picking them to win the division. The bottom, Seattle is imploding. They did not do what they needed to do for years and years and years, which was protect Russell Wilson, and he finally got sick of it and left. And that works out for us, even though we have to play him this season, but at least we don't have to play him twice. Good luck to him. I like Russell Wilson, but when you're competing between Geno Smith and Drew Lock for your starting quarterback position, your franchise is in trouble, and they are not looking good. And second and third can really go either way because San Fran, regardless of how they start a season, have shown that they can get hot and go into the playoffs and make a run. And the Cardinals start hot and simmer down throughout the season. So both of those teams are going to be in that realistic ballpark of 10 to 12-ish wins. And which one ends up with one more than the other, I think it's too hard to say right now. But 2 and 3 are Arizona and San Fran and can go either way. But like Aarron said, it's totally reasonable for the top 3 to be in the playoffs again.
Yeah, there's 2 things I feel pretty confident about. That the Rams are going to be good and the Seahawks are going to be bad, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm with you that, I'm picking Seahawks for last place and picking Rams for first place. The Cardinals and the Niners are high variance teams to me, right? Because it's just, there is some, like, the Cardinals, they're as much as people want to be critical of how the offseason went, this still has the core set of playmakers that led this team, to the best record in the NFL in the first half. Do they have the depth? Will they, or by the time the season starts, will they have the depth to withstand injuries? Will they get luckier with injuries? Will Cliff adjust some of his play calling to, be less predictable down the stretch? There's a lot of ifs, but the upside for this team is to win the division and be the number 1 seed. Like there's the talent to do that in terms of the playmakers. Not saying that's what they're going to do, but they also have a tough schedule, lost a few key players, and are relying on a lot of young players that, to develop, which, I feel like they're a little damned if they do, damned if they don't, because we criticize them for not playing the rookies. And now they're going with a little bit of a youth movement on defense, at least. And people are like, what's up? Why didn't we want a 34-year-old, free agent in here, not whatever. But so like, I could see the Cardinals coming in first place or third place. Right. And the Niners are also a high variance team because, like, everyone likes to talk about how Shanahan has 2 winning seasons or whatever, but he also has had, a spotty quarterback situation and injuries. So, I'll give him that. And I do think he's a good coach. It's like that team would be who's going to be starting at quarterback and for how many games and how healthy? Like, is Jimmy G going to be on the roster? A lot of people say he needs to be traded or cut or whatever. Will Trey Lance start? What's he going to be? Is he, so like the Niners, I could see them being as good as winning the division or being as bad as third place as well, right? But I think I'm going to go kind of where you all, and where I think Grant sums it up here. I think the consensus is Rams, Cardinals, Niners, Seahawks, right? And so I think that's kind of where we're looking at.
The other thing I wanted to, just build off of was a comment by Peo is up there talking about, he was kind of, lighthearted jabbing, being like, hey, well, you give the Rams their props. And that's the thing. Like, I mean, I had a run in with some other Rams fans who we weren't even talking about them. And they came on to the Twitter or the tweet and started talking a bunch of mad crap. But here's the thing, like, no Cardinals fan should be talking smack to the Rams. And if they are, I mean, you're I'm sorry, but you're delusional.
Yeah.
They 2-1 record against them last year, or 1-2. It's going to be a tough time. And the Cardinals fans, you can own the Seahawks, you can kind of jab with the Niners, but not, I wouldn't say the Rams, because it's a losing battle. But in the same way, though, in a challenge comes opportunity. And so if you really want to be the best, you got to beat the best. And the Rams literally are the best team, if we're going off of last year's standards. And so if the Cardinals are really going to be a championship team, they're going to have to step up and beat the Rams. So I just want to say that.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so I think there's another good question here that Jordan P gave us an over-under 800 receiving yards for Rondale Moore this season. Over or under?
I'm going to go over. I'm a huge Rondale Moore optimist. And I think him taking the role that he had behind the line of scrimmage or at least very, very close last year, combined with the increased usage in the Christian Kirk type of role, sky's the limit for Rondale Moore. I know that there are a lot of weapons to spread the ball around to this year, but that type of speed is exactly what we were hoping for from Andy Isabella for so long. He has the speed, but at least Rondale Moore has shown that he is a serviceable wide receiver beyond just being fast. So when you combine all of that in offenses that are completely predicated around speed right now, like the Kansas City Chiefs have been for the past 4 years, then using him correctly can be that next level type of progress for the offense as a whole and Kyler Murray. So I'm going to go over. I think Rondale Moore has close to 1,000-yard season. We could even see the repeat of the Breston, Bolden, Fitzgerald year.
That's a bold one there.
I mean, it's happened before, and it's happened to plenty of teams since to have 3 receivers with 1,000.
It's only happened 5 times, and the Cardinals were the last one to do it.
Okay. Aaron, what do you yeah, that's right. Wait, did you have more, Kyler, or sorry?
Well, there is a good combination of wide receivers to accomplish something like that. Even in a shortened season, D-Hop is capable of that. Marquise Brown, capable of that. And Rondale Moore, very capable of 1,000-yard season. We talked about it last time with D-Hop, A.J. Green, and Christian Kirk. Well, I think this 3, even with the games that D-Hop is missing, is better than the previous one.
Yeah. What do you think, Aaron?
I'm going under. There's just, even without Hopkins, there's still too many mouths to feed. Kyler has been unpredictable with his target share. And it also comes up to Cliff getting him plays and actually getting him the ball. I mean, we've talked, ad nauseum about how Rondale Moore's average depth of target was 1.3 last year. Beyond the line of scrimmage, the dude's stuck in 2019 Kingsbury land in bubble screens and hitches and now routes where he's not getting anywhere off the line. If there's anything the Cardinals would want to see, it's that big, deep passing game that we've all been waiting for 3 years, but it's never really happened outside of the Christian Kirk 80-yarder against Dallas a couple years ago. So I'm going to go under, and if he proves me wrong, so be it.
This is a tough one for me, and I think that speaks to that's a good over-under number. Because I love Rondale Moore too. You all know this. I mean, I'm a big fan of the talent. He was, my top Cardinals play last year was from him. But I do think there's a lot of mouths to feed. The Hopkins suspension means early on there's going to be more targets to go around, and he could really come out of the gate, really hot. But as the season goes on and Hopkins is back and Hollywood Brown is getting his share and AJ Green's in the mix and Zach Ertz is in the mix and is Trey McBride even starting to be in the mix? That's a lot of mouths to feed. And I think they're going Rondale Moore. They're going to get him touches, but they're going to be going with.
You need to boot that.
Oh, yes. Let's block user. There we go. They're gone. Yep. All right. Anyway, I blocked him. All right. Anyway, I see Aaron pointing down, what is it? And I scroll down. I'm like, oh yeah, goodbye. Anyway, yes. Wrong place. Anyway, I think they're going to get him a lot of touches, but I think they're going to be doing so with more. He's going to get some stuff out of the backfield, jet sweeps, a lot of that kind of stuff, which I think he's really good at. But I think it's under, but slightly under. That's mine. But I think that's a great over under number for him. So yeah.
I think we're just not taking into consideration the upcoming 6,000-yard season from Kyler Murray. 1,000 yards to Hop, 1,000 to Brown, 1,000 to Moore, 1,000 to Ertz, 1,000 to Green, 1,000 to McBride, 1,000 to Connor. We'll have 6,000 yards.
Yeah, and then you'll wind up like the 2013 Broncos getting blown out.
Yeah.
Or losing in overtime, whatever it was.
As a follow-up, panic level for Rondale Moore has less than 7 yards receiving in 17 games.
2.
Depends on how much less. I mean, if it's upper 600s and he's involved in other things like handoffs and stuff, I'm not going to panic. If it's, and I don't know if I'm going to say panic, but like if he's got like 300 yards, I'm going to be like disappointed. I'm going to be like, ugh. Are we not using? He's got the talent. They need to use him. He showed those flashes, but like, I don't know. Like for me, it's like there's not just raw numbers. There's role and quality. You know, I've talked about this before. Like if you can have a basketball player on a championship team who's averaging 14 points a game, and they might average 20 points a game on a losing team, but I'd rather have them on that 14 points a game on a championship team, right? And so there's so many other details you have to look at, right? If Rondale Moore ends up with like 693 yards, 4 touchdowns, a handful of carries, and like 300 yards rushing because they're using him in versatile ways, and he maybe does something in return game, and the offense is really good, I call that a win, right?
Yeah.
It just depends on what's going on, right?
Like, it's not worth panicking if he gets all of those numbers, but you can see that he was used correctly. If he gets those numbers and it's because the offense was super efficient and Murray was getting the ball around to a bunch of different people and we had a very balanced and very varied type of offense, there's no reason to panic. Like, he was used correctly and it helped them win games. If he becomes a main player and is still only under 700 yards and you're not having that balanced offense, then maybe you panic. But the numbers aren't as much as we just want to see Rondale Moore used to the full extent of his abilities as a wide receiver this year. He can be used a lot more ways than he was in 2021. Let
me counter your not points, but your points with this. Excuse me. So here's the thing that we're really comparing Rondale Moore to. Somebody's got to take up and cover Christian Kirk's role. Kirk had 103 targets last year. That's the most out of any receiver, and he caught 77 passes. So there's a lot of targets to go around. However, you look at his career stats and his splits, Kirk had 2,200 of his 2,900 career yards inside of from the 20 to 20. Basically, he was a mover down the field. But what happened when the team got in the red zone? They never used him. He only had 8 red zone touchdowns in the 4 years he was here. And so I don't care if he doesn't have a lot of yards. If Rondale Moore can actually get in the end zone and cut into a good number of that 8 touchdowns that Kirk had, then I'll be happy with it.
Yeah. And, remember there's more mouths to feed. Like, again, there were last year. I mean, like last year you had Hopkins, Green, Kirk, and Moore, right? And now it's like, you've lost Kirk, but you've added Hollywood Brown. So maybe, I guess, and then you have Ertz for the full season, right? Although, we do have, we're missing out on 6 games of Hopkins. Or I guess what I'm saying is it's not like they just lost Kirk and didn't add anyone. They added a Hollywood Brown who they think they probably want to be one of the leading receivers on the team.
Insert right? They're the same picture meme.
Right. So anyway, yeah, that's an interesting question though. Real quick, do you think there's a chance C-Hop gets his suspension lowered?
No.
Nope.
I don't think so either. The league tends to stick to their guns on this unless there is some compelling piece of evidence that comes out that something, and even that's hard to substantiate. So I don't think so. So yeah, I think it's probably, going to stay where it was. Right. Let's see, going through here. Want to say, hey, real quick, to some folks that I haven't said any hey to yet. We got Mr. Mono. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you. Let's see. We've also got Dakota Bedard. Thank you for being here. Same predictions last year. Okay, good to know.
Simon
and LSU is that Shad? I think that might be, but I could be wrong. Thank you for being here. We got Easy No Steroids responding to our little guests that we had here. So let's see. We've got Cole Larkin. Yeah, how much do you think McBride will play? Does he get Collins treatment, or do they use 2 tight ends more? That's a good question. What do you guys think?
I mean, Max Williams is still recovering from the injury, so God, I wish I could give an exact number of snaps, but I'm going to say it's going to be a pretty substantial playing amount for a rookie. If we're lucky, because rookies that aren't Kyler Murray on offense don't play. So I mean, I would be confident saying that he appears in 12 games. So I'd be happy with that.
Okay.
Yeah, the Max Williams injury will play some role in it. If he's still out for the first few weeks, then we're going to probably see a lot of Trey McBride. I would imagine we see quite a bit out of him. He's going to be active on game days. We're not going to deal with that inactive stuff, I don't think, with him. He'll be there, and like Aarron says, probably pretty spot on. He'll see time, 12 games. Maybe there are some he doesn't see any if Max Williams is there, or the game plan just doesn't have a ton of 2 tight end sets. But I think we're going to see a lot of McBride, and we're at least going to get a good taste of what we have in him.
Well, it's not fans control him, so he'll play, right?
Good point.
A lot of folks saying that they think he's going to play. He didn't get second round to ride the bench. No, that's what right. They didn't take him the second round to ride the bench. That's why they use first. That's what they use first round picks for, right?
Yeah, but that's what Amy Isabella and Rondale Moore are, right?
But I kid. So I'm gonna slow my roll on this one just a little bit, because tight ends often take time to develop. They're slower to get in the starting lineup than other positions, unless you're Kyle Pitts, huh?
You got to do a lot of squats.
Yeah, there you go. I think he'll see the field, and I think he'll be active. But I think Ertz is going to be the primary tight end, until Max Williams gets back, and still will be. But and I think we'll see, McBride out there some. He'll get a few targets. He'll be in there to block some. He'll get a little bit of play. But I'd be really surprised if he's accumulating any kind of numbers of substance like in his rookie year, because of just how long it takes for tight ends and the fact that it got Ertz. Mr. Brown was saying this, right? They don't usually produce their first year. I think we'll see him in there to block more than to receive, and once in a while he'll get a few targets. But I don't think it's going to be significant, even while Max Williams is out. I think he'll mostly be in there to block with a few touches, targets. But I'd love to see him come out on the gate like that. But just the history of tight ends, it's not usually like that. Do we think they'll be doing more 2 tight end sets? I don't think they'll be doing more. I think they'll do the same amount, because they still have a lot of receiving. They'll play tight ends maybe more, have 1 tight end sets. But what do you guys think? Do you think they'll do more 2 tight end sets?
They ran 12 personnel 25% of the time last year. For them to change that would be, like you said, would be kind of not drastic, but there would need to be a significant shift in the offense. But I mean, I would just want to see somebody as a lead blocker in the backfield. I'm tired of them running just one backfields and then having the running back having to make their own. Just that last guy needs to get picked up. I don't even care if it's tight end playing a fullback. Get someone back there.
Yeah. Okay. Did you have any thoughts on that, Kyler? No. All right. All right. So let's get a couple other questions in here. I'm trying to get questions from folks. If I haven't got a question for you, I'm trying to get one from you. What would be more devastating, an injury to offensive line or cornerback?
That's a good question.
Yeah. What do y'all think?
I mean, I'm staying on my soapbox, and I've been it. It's the offensive line and the whole draft thing. While we know Hudson's got this, outstanding issue with the team or whatever it may be, or he may not want to play, which is totally his choice. But the fact that the Cardinals didn't sit and think about what was really more important, really another wide receiver when you have pretty solid depth versus an offensive line that when Sean Harlow started snapping, bless his heart, it got south. It went south and it got bad. It's going to be the O-line for me.
Kyler?
I feel compelled to take cornerback as an opposite answer to Aarron, but I'm probably going to go O-line as well. Going into the season, even before any of the Hudson stuff came out, we were already worried about O-line depth. And now it comes out that your star center might be gone and that your left guard is going to become your center. And now you have even less depth at every position because everything has to move over for a move like that. So O-line depth is super concerning. But like Aarron mentioned at the very, very beginning, cornerback depth is one like devastating season-ending injury away from being a horrible test of depth, just like last season, where we were already thin, had some decent ones that were okay, but then one injury happens and two little nagging injuries happen, and you immediately see that you do not have a ton of people backing up the starting cornerback positions. So Is it a tie? Probably, but if I had to pick one, O-line. O-line.
And just to real piggy off of that real quick there, TCR. And it's funny because I read in an article maybe like 2 weeks before that even happened, being like the Cardinals didn't do enough to invest in the offensive line. And then I'm not trying to toot my own horn here. I think I was actually more surprised and shocked as all of us were that this actually is an issue that no one saw coming. It just so happens that I just kind of wrote about it earlier. So, I mean, it's got to be fixed, and hopefully Justin Pugh, if he has to take over, can be the answer.
To me, it's cornerback. And it's not because I necessarily am bullish on how great our offensive line is or anything like that. When it comes to cornerback, it's like right, I think they're going to sign someone between now and when the season starts. But as it stands, it's, Wilson, Murphy, and Breon Borders.
Yikes.
Or Antonio Hamilton, who was decent in the slot, but that means Murphy is your number one outside corner full time. Or maybe the guy they signed, it was Josh Jackson, who I like the potential for him, but you want to lean on him as a star. And if you have an injury, right, then it is. Let's say it's Murphy or Wilson, right? It's one of those two playing, and then Hamilton and Breon Borders or Jackson. That's really concerning. Now with offensive line, we're already facing losing the player that I was like, we don't want to lose, and that's Hudson, right? Looks like he's probably retiring. So I'm already kind of viewing it with him out of the picture. So it's like, okay, right now, let's say I think they'll bring in, if Hudson retires, I do think they'll bring an offensive line, a guard or center. But even if they don't, okay, let's say Pugh ends up being the center, and then let's say right guard is Hernandez, left guard, let's say is Josh Jones, Humphreys is tackle, Beachum is tackle. Okay. If any of those guys get injured, they can plug in Justin Murray, who started for them at right tackle and started for them at guard. And I do not think he is a huge drop off from one of those other starters like Hernandez or Josh Jones. Justin Murray he's not a guy you want as a full-time starter, but he's serviceable. I just think the drop off at offensive line to the next man up isn't as huge. And there's even we've got those two rookies, which we don't know if they're going to be ready to play, but rookies do start sometimes on offensive line. They were 6th and 7th round or 7th round picks, but they were guys that were thought to be more like 4th round talents. Maybe one of those guys steps in and plays well enough that it's not a lot worse than and again, part of the reason maybe I'm less concerned is because with an offensive line, you've got 8 or 10 guys on the roster, so there's more players to work with. And the difference between our next man up and some of the low end starters to me isn't as big of a difference. With cornerback, I don't like the idea of Breon Borders as a starter for us. So for me, it's cornerback.
But also at the same time, though, you bring up the point about O-line having 8 to 10 guys, but I mean, on the cornerbacks, you got maybe 2 or 3 guys out of that depth chart who are on the field at all times. Then you got linebackers and safeties who can cover as well. So, I mean, is the depth really bigger over there? Is it on offensive line? I mean, in reality, you can really only carry about 2 deep on the offensive line before you basically use up all your roster spots for it. So, I mean, it really is almost a horse apiece when you look at it, but both are valid arguments.
Yeah, I guess I like the deeper depth on our offensive line. Like the guys that are like number 8, 9, or 10 on our offensive line are those rookies or guys that I feel a little bit better than the guys that are number 4 or 5 on our cornerback room. But, here's hoping they sign some folks, right? Hayden Shredder, right? Yeah, like, listen, if they bring those 2 guys in, I feel a lot better, right?
Yes.
So, listen, there's strong argument for both. I guess I just feel a little bit like, part of the argument is that some of the starters on offensive line are kind of already not too far from replacement level, maybe in terms of how they're playing right now. So I don't know, but it's a good question. It definitely got some conversation, right? Let's see. I think we got maybe we'll do like 1 or 2 more questions. If there's anything that stands out to you all.
Jordan P.
Okay, which one?
The one about with Pugh and Eno.
Okay. Did you guys see Pugh said Eno has been the best outside zone runner on the team, but he wasn't able to block in years prior, but now he's night and day in pass blocking. I didn't see that quote. I had seen and heard the quotes from Kingsbury. So thoughts on the quote and what that means for Eno?
Cal, you want to go first?
Sure. I mean, as the flight expert for Devils in Detail, I have to talk about our former Sun Devil here, Eno Benjamin. I had not heard this quote either, just full disclosure. But like Joe, I'd heard all the stuff that Kingsbury had said about him. So it seems like we're getting, I don't know if this was prompted, but unprompted stuff about Eno Benjamin coming out. I love it. I love it. And it's a proof that you can draft running backs in the 7th round and still get good value out of them.
You still do it in the 1st round.
Yeah. But Eno was so good, so productive at ASU. And he has all those little traits and qualities that you want in a change of pace back from someone like James Conner, who is a bigger back, more of the bruiser, more of the red zone type of guy who's going to get you a lot of touchdowns. But Eno Benjamin is that smaller, shifty, elusive, spinning running back that I think is a perfect complement to someone like Conner. So we sort of had that in Chase Edmonds and James Conner, and they worked well together, and that running game was okay. But Eno Benjamin, in my opinion, and I think Aaron's going to agree with me, is more than capable of filling a number 2 role with James Conner. And that running game between the 2 of them, that's beautiful. If you use that correctly, you have such a varied run style that you can do so many things with it. So to hear that he's doing really well, and especially in the pass blocking stuff, because I've heard and assumed that that was part of what was holding back his playing time, was how bad he was at pass pro. Because if he couldn't do that, then you can't justify his spots on an active spot for game day. But so if he's getting better in that, and he's going to start getting the touches in game and stuff, we can see the Eno Benjamin train take off, and I would love that.
Yeah, and and underscoring has a point. There's always kind of some talk in the preseason about players. So I totally recognize that we have to we need to see it. Yeah. I do think it is noteworthy though that we have 2 different sources. We have Pugh raving about him, right? About what, and it sounds like it's a specific praise, right? That he's when he's talking about him being the best zone outside runner, and that just it was the blocking that he needed to work on, and he's doing that. And Kingsbury on more than one occasion saying he's had the best offseason, unprompted. I guess I always, I've been watching for a long time. I know there's this coach speak, and they're doing great. They're having a great, they're working hard. Like, this sounds different than the typical coach speak. I know I said that before. We need to see what happens, but there is an opportunity there, right? For the Chase Edmonds role. And that's kind of what you do if you're smart with running backs. You draft guys in the day 3 and you eventually let them earn those roles in their second or third year. I mean, that's what Edmonds did, right? They drafted him in round 4 out of Fordham, and he didn't really become a major contributor for a couple of years, and you just keep that pipeline going, right? So
the other thing to go, building off of that comment is how he's the best outside zone runner. That's one of the reasons why they drafted Trey McBride, is to actually get leverage out on that offense. Because, I mean, let's face it, the blocking from the wide receivers was not as good as it could have been, and especially when you have arguably the best blocking wide receiver of all time in Larry Fitzgerald, not there anymore. It's going to be hard to replace that. There you go, right on the jersey. And so McBride's he's going to be able to take flatter angles. He's going to be able to pick up, that overhang linebacker or a corner off of the edge, because in his own running scheme, that's all it takes. Is you don't even have to hold your block. You literally just have to get in that lane. And as long as your hips are square, and the running back can make a decision to cut inside or out, what's really going to change things for the Cardinals in the run game. And that's what I actually am a little more excited about to see from McBride, outside of his passing game stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So let's see, D's Nuts. Thanks for being here. Prediction. I think those are reasonable record predictions. I would say those are probably, if I had to venture a guess, I'm probably guessing somewhere in those range, right? Give or take a win. So let's see. Trey McBride could struggle his rookie year. Don't want to sound like negativity, Nancy, but I would just like to say, see it to believe it. I mean, listen, I think, the only thing I would argue is, with what is the normal development curve for tight ends in the NFL, if Trey McBride only sees like 10 or 15% of the snaps, or maybe up to 20, I don't think that's struggling. That's what you get with a rookie tight end. They slowly kind of learn the system. They get a few snaps, and then they break out in year 2 or 3, and with rare exceptions. So, like, to me, that's not struggling. That's normal development curve for an NFL rookie tight end. So I guess I kind of look at it in that context, right? So let's see. I can see our roster's ideal to do creative things in regard to wide receiver blocking with our pass catching tight ends who can play outside. So yeah.
So I mean, but like, even it's not like we're expecting McBride to pop for 1,000 yards, because only 2 tight ends have ever done that in NFL history. One was Kyle Pitts, and the other one was Mike Ditka back in 1961. So I mean, if McBride can have 400 to 600 yards, great. That's all we're asking for. And out of any tight end too, we're so desperate for tight end to work here in Arizona. Kyler did a good video on how Zach Ertz's 11 games were already like the 5th best season in Cardinals history.
Yeah, it's in the top 5, and Jackie Smith is probably the best tight end in Cardinals history, and it's been a while.
Yeah,
it has been many, many, many years since.
If the people who are watching this are near Kyler's and I's and my age, like, we've never had a good tight end. Zach Ertz is the best tight end.
I'm older than you, and I haven't seen a good tight end.
Okay,
Paul,
there it is.
Paul is our resident Cardinals historian. He's been a Cardinals fan longer than I think any of us have been alive, and I'm not even saying that as a joke. So he might have whoops.
They're back.
Not for long.
The wrong type of stream.
Yeah, sorry, kids. So yeah, sorry. It took me a second to block them. So we haven't ever had good tight ends here. This is an interesting question. I think maybe we will take this one. Jordan's got some good questions tonight. We'll probably take this one and then go out on this one, because we're approaching the hour mark. If you guys could go back and get Cam Jurgens, the center, instead of McBride, would you do it? I say no. I think McBride has so much upside. I'd rather keep him and hope Kime gets another center.
I don't know who this Cam Jurgens guy is. I mean, there was no coverage on him.
Was he Nebraska? I saw him I said this before. You don't know him because you were not part of our Mock Draft Mondays Mr. Aaron Van Buren?
I am a working man.
Okay. Oh, and okay. Which means we are not, Kyler, apparently.
Apparently. He is the Nebraska center, though.
Okay.
He makes his own beef jerky.
Well, I mean, it's definitely a Hoss life thing to do.
That's a plus.
But I don't know. I if that's the case, are we talking about trading the first round pick? I guess this is
no. So I think what they would have, Juergens went like maybe a pick or two before the Cardinals, I think. And I think what would have to have happened is the Cardinals might have had to trade up a few picks, giving up a pick in sixth round or future fourth. I don't know. They wouldn't have had to give up much to move up a few spots. So they might have had to given up a future, a fifth round pick next year or something. So anyway, I'm going to interpret this scenario as the Cardinals trade up a few spots and get Juergens instead of McBride in the second round.
I'm going to say no. McBride's fine. I'm going to side with Paul here. I'm going to free agency. I mean, last week we went into all the centers, or 2 weeks ago, whatever it was. There's a handful of centers out there. As long as they're decent, that's all you need. So
what do you think, huh?
Yeah, they knew the stuff was going on with Rodney Hudson. I know that was kind of frustrating to learn that they knew that and did not target a center. But I do think maybe I've come around on that a little bit. I think I would rather have the rookie tight end that's going to potentially develop into your tight end of a long time, because Zach Ertz will be here for a limited time. He's at that part of his career. Than a rookie center, because what expectations are you going to have for a rookie center to take over for Rodney Hudson? That's a tall order, to take a second round pick and say, hey, Rodney Hudson, one of the best centers in the NFL, just quit. Here you go. You better be as good as him. So in a long-term play, I think I would rather take Trey McBride too and have him develop with Zach Ertz, and maybe we have a good tight end for the next 10 years of Cardinals history. Maybe he breaks all of Jackie Smith's records. So I would keep the pick, even though it is sort of frustrating.
I think I'm with you all on that too. I wish they would have already signed a center in free agency. Hopefully they do. I wouldn't have minded if they drafted one on day 3. But if they had landed Juergens in round 2, and we know what's going on now, we'd all be talking about what a great draft pick it is, how fortuitous it was. But generally speaking, I think there are guys you can get in free agency still who are going to play as well or better than Juergens would have in his rookie year. I know you're looking at it for the future, but if you're drafting him, you're a center with what's going on in Hudson, you need him to start now. And I don't know that a rookie's necessarily going to be ready. Maybe, I don't know. So I'm generally with you there on that. Well, it's been an hour and 3 minutes. A lot of great questions. We kind of went all over the board. We appreciate you all in the chat for, having all these great questions and comments. Sorry, I didn't get to everyone. But I try to get at least one comment from each person in there. A lot of great questions. Really appreciate you guys. Marquise Hayes, hopefully he becomes something. And I like those rookies. So we'll see. So we're going to head out of here. Aaron, where can folks find you, and what do they need to know that's coming up in terms of things you're working on?
Yeah. So my personal Twitter handle for at least the sports side is right here on the screen. I also am the site expert at Raising Zona for Fansided. So we're posting the articles to Twitter and Facebook. Make sure you go follow us on there. I got actually coming up this next week. I'm going to be in New Orleans for a conference pretty much the whole week. So I have some pretty interesting Cardinals history pieces coming up on there. And there's also if you're still watching, you're going to love this. 5 questions Cardinals fans should know about the Rams. It's going to be dropping next week, Thursday at this time. So there is that. So, yeah.
Awesome. Kyler, where can people find you and what do you got going?
Well, you guys can find me on Twitter as always. Big news. I recently changed the name of my Twitter account just to my name. So it's Kyler Burd, but the handle is still the same at @azcard_birdseye. Really active there talking about Cardinal stuff. And you're probably going to see a few Sun Devils things split in there because I'm now the site editor for Devils in Detail covering the Arizona State Sun Devils. So if you're interested in any of that, if you overlap with that fan base, go ahead and check some of that out. I'm sure there's going to be some spicy stuff with the Pac-12 suddenly becoming the Pac-10 and then probably the Pac-8. So there's going to be a lot of interesting stuff in conference realignment in the next few weeks. So stay tuned for that, and I hope you guys will give some of that stuff a read.
Awesome. Now, if I'm not mistaken, are both of your sites still looking for people who are interested in writing?
Yes.
Mine is not. We got a flurry of people in, and
awesome.
We've got enough, so we're good.
Okay. Awesome. So if you have an interest in Arizona State, is it just football or is it all things Arizona State sports?
If you have an interest in any of the athletic programs at Arizona State and you want to write about that, please get in contact with me on Twitter. I'd love that. We just got our first contributor this week, published one of his articles.
Dandy of an article.
Yep, Ore wrote one. So if football, basketball, baseball, they have a good baseball program. Hockey, I don't know anything about hockey, so I love some help learning about hockey and having someone cover the ASU hockey team. So if you have any interest in that, please just get in contact with me.
Awesome. Well, gentlemen, I appreciate you guys. It's always fun. It's a highlight of my week to get to hang out with you guys, talk football. And I appreciate all the folks in the chat as always. Thank you guys for being here. We'll do this each week between now and the regular season so we can all get our Cardinals fix in what is kind of the deadest time of year for NFL football right now. But that's all right. So we'll all get our Cardinals fixed together on TCR Live on Thursday nights. Thank you all for being here. As always, I'm going to throw up the shout out to the channel members as a way to kind of thank those folks for supporting the channel. These are really thoughtful, kind people who commit to supporting the channel financially every month. So thank you all. And if you're interested in becoming a member, the information link should be down below. But please do me a favor, click like. When the video goes up, go in and put a comment, maybe something that from the stream that you enjoyed. Those kinds of engagement really help with the algorithm. So likes, shares, comments in the video after it's posted. So, but I'm going to put this up and we'll head out. Thank you all. We'll see you next time. Peace.